"Excuse me, miss. I don't know how you got that ticket, but this line is for paying customers only." Gate agent Ryan Keller's voice dripped with contempt as he stepped in front of Dr. Amina Qureshi, using his body as a barrier. His eyes flicked over her tailored navy abaya and neatly wrapped silk hijab with a thinly veiled sneer. He let his gaze linger on her $3,000 leather briefcase, the way some people might inspect a counterfeit purse from a street vendor. "Let me guess," Ryan continued, loud enough for half the gate to hear. "Someone gave you that boarding pass. Or maybe you found it." He tapped his clipboard against her shoulder. Not quite a shove, but enough to push her half a step back. "The charity line is over there, sweetheart." He turned toward the gathered passengers. "Economy boarding starts in 20 minutes, Ryan announced, his voice deliberately carrying. Heads turned. Phones lifted. A teenager named Tessa hit the record button. Amina adjusted the small badge clipped to her lapel, mostly hidden under the edge of her abaya. Federal blue and gold. She glanced at her PC Felipe watch. 6:47 p.m. "Have you ever held the power to change everything while being treated like you were nothing?" Her jaw tightened, but her voice stayed steady. "There's no misunderstanding. This is my seat." She raised her boarding pass. 1A, first class. The gold elite status emblem gleamed under the harsh terminal lights. Ryan plucked it from her hand, studying it like it might bite him. "Clara," he called out with performative urgency. "We've got a situation here." Clara Voss, the supervisor, strode over, polyester uniform stretching uncomfortably across her frame. She gave Amina a single look and folded her arms. "What's the issue?" "Premium boarding pass authenticity," Ryan said, waving it in the air. "Doesn't seem legitimate." Amina's phone buzzed. "Senate hearing in 3 hours. Critical vote pending." She silenced it without flinching. "Flight 447 boards in 18 minutes. The gate announcement echoed overhead. Clara scanned the ticket under the reader. Beep. Green light. She frowned and scanned it again. Beep. Still green. "Sometimes the system glitches," Clara muttered. "Ma'am, we need to verify this ticket wasn't obtained improperly," she said, the word improperly landing like something sour in her mouth. "Corporate policy requires extra screening for suspicious bookings." Behind them, the boarding line was forming. Tessa, the teenager, raised her phone a little higher. The TikTok live stream went live. "Y'all seeing this Islamophobia at gate C12? She whispered into the camera. "They're literally harassing this professional Muslim woman for flying first class." Comments poured in. "Not again. Where is this happening? Tag the airline." Amina noticed the phone pointed her way, but didn't react. 2 missed calls from Chairman Mercer glowed on her own screen. Her Federal Aviation Administration badge caught the light as she adjusted her jacket. Before we proceed further, I want to take a moment to invite you to be part of something bigger than just this story. If what you've heard so far has made you feel, think, or reflect, even for a moment, then hit that like button so more people can discover voices like these. Subscribe to Muslim Stories Unheard so you never miss the next untold truth waiting to be heard. And if you've lived through moments of bias, resilience, faith, or triumph, or even witnessed them, share your experience in the comments. Let's get back to our story. "I understand you're following protocol," Amina said, measured. "However, I do need to board this flight." Ryan gave a short, derisive laugh. "Maybe you should try budget airlines next time. More your price range." He made air quotes around price range, smirking at Clara. The insult landed exactly as intended. A few passengers shifted uncomfortably. Tessa's live viewer count hit 47. "Excuse me," an elderly woman said as she stepped forward. "I couldn't help but overhear. This is unacceptable behavior." Ryan's smile vanished. "Ma'am, please return to your seat. This is official airline business." "Official discrimination is what this is," the woman snapped. Clara leaned toward Ryan, whispering urgently. Their posture shifted, defensive now, glancing between Amina and the growing crowd. Amina's phone buzzed again. This time, a text from the oversight team. "Protocol 7, standby, awaiting your signal." Amina typed back quickly. "Not yet. Documenting. Final boarding call, flight 447. The announcement crackled through the speakers. 12 minutes left, Clara announced unnecessarily loudly. We're just ensuring passenger safety through proper verification procedures. Tessa's live stream count surged past 156 viewers. Comments poured in faster now. This is blatant Islamophobia. Get their names. Corporate needs to see this. Look, Ryan said, voice shifting into fake sympathy. These people always try to game the system. We've seen it before. Fake tickets, stolen miles, credit card fraud. The words hung in the air like toxic smoke. Every passenger within 20 feet heard them. Phones rose higher. More recordings began. Amina unlatched her briefcase. A small action, yet the motion seemed to draw every eye in the gate area. Inside, leather dividers held official documents stamped with government seals, a federal ID badge, and a tablet with agency logos. She withdrew a small recording device, no bigger than a pen, and placed it on the counter. The red light began to blink steadily. For the record, she said quietly, today is October 18th, 2024. Time is 6:52 p.m. Location is Portland International Airport, Gate C12. Present are Gate Agent Ryan Keller, Supervisor Clara Voss, and approximately 40 witnesses. Ryan's smirk faltered for the first time. What are you doing? He asked. Documenting this interaction, Amina replied evenly. Please continue with your verification procedures. Clara caught Ryan by the arm, pulling him 2 steps away. Their whispering turned heated, hands cutting through the air in quick, frantic gestures. Security to Gate C12, Clara said into her radio. We have an uncooperative passenger. The phrase uncooperative passenger sent a ripple of unease through the waiting area. Everyone knew what could happen to passengers labeled that way, especially when they wore a hijab. Amina stayed perfectly still. She checked her PC Felipe watch, a model that cost more than Ryan's yearly salary. Her phone showed 17 missed calls, all from .gov extensions. Tessa's live stream exploded to 891 viewers. She'd tagged the airline's official account. Comments became a digital roar. This is going viral. Someone identify these employees. We see you, sister. Stay strong. Airport security is en route, Clara said with false authority. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step away from the gate area. Amina's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, Senator Albright, Commerce Committee. She declined, texting instead. Delay hearing 30 minutes. Gathering evidence. The reply came instantly. Evidence of what? Her fingers moved across the keys. Title VII violations in progress. Real-time documentation required. Flight 447, final boarding call. All passengers should be on board. 8 minutes remaining. The crowd swelled. Even travelers from nearby gates drifted over. Someone had already shared Tessa's live stream on X, formerly Twitter. The airline's social media mentions were climbing by the second. Ryan straightened his tie, forcing his composure back. Ma'am, for the final time, please proceed to the appropriate boarding area. And where exactly is that? Amina asked. Economy. Coach. The back of the plane, he said slowly, as if explaining to a child. Where you belong. The words hit the air like shrapnel, pure, undiluted Islamophobia. No coded language. No plausible deniability. Tessa's live stream viewer count jumped to 1,247. Amina smiled for the first time since arriving at the gate. Not a warm smile. Not friendly. The smile of someone who'd just been handed exactly the proof they needed. Heavy footsteps echoed across the terminal. Airport security officer David Navarro approached, his hand resting lightly on his radio. Unlike Ryan and Clara, his face carried no hostility, only tired professionalism. What seems to be the problem here? Navarro asked, voice calm but edged with fatigue. Before anyone could answer, another voice cut sharply through the tension. I'm Robert Sterling, gate manager. A man in an ill-fitting suit strode over, confidence radiating from every step. Officer Navarro, we need this individual removed from the boarding area, Sterling said firmly. Navarro frowned. Removed for what? Disrupting airline operations, Sterling replied without missing a beat. Refusing to comply with security procedures. Amina hadn't moved from her spot. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't touched anyone. Yet somehow, she was now the disruptor. Ma'am, Navarro said gently, is there somewhere else you can wait while this gets sorted out? Flight 447, Gate closing in 6 minutes. The announcement blared through the terminal. Amina's phone buzzed with a flood of notifications. Her lock screen lit up. 23 missed calls from Chairman Mercer. 45 texts from the Senate Commerce Committee. Unread WhatsApp messages from the FAA crisis team. She opened one text. Vote delayed until 8 p.m. Where are you? Chairman. Her fingers moved swiftly. Delayed by Islamophobic incident. Documenting federal contractor violations in real time. The reply came seconds later. Are you serious? Dead serious. This could change everything. Tessa's live stream had exploded to 3,200 viewers. The comments scrolled too quickly to read. Make this go viral. Tag every news station. Call care now. This is exactly why we can't stay silent. Sterling's eyes darted to the crowd and the forest of raised phones. His corporate instincts finally kicked in. Ladies and gentlemen, please disperse. This is a private security matter. An older woman wearing a denim jacket and carrying a floral tote stepped forward. Private? Half the airport is watching. Nothing private about public discrimination. Ma'am, please return to your gate, Sterling demanded. This is my gate, she shot back, raising her boarding pass. 1B first class. Right next to where this woman is supposed to be sitting. More passengers stepped closer, forming a protective ring. A businessman in a sharp navy suit. A Latina mother balancing a toddler on her hip. A young Asian man with a crisp military haircut. The children's wide eyes flicked between Amina and the uniformed officer. Absorbing the scene, a lesson in America playing out in real time. This is getting out of hand, Clara muttered to Ryan. Maybe we should just let her board. Absolutely not, Sterling snapped. We don't negotiate with troublemakers. Navarro's jaw tightened. 23 years on the force had taught him to recognize when a situation was about to explode. Look, why don't we all take a step back? No stepping back, Sterling cut in sharply. Officer Navarro, I need you to escort this woman from the terminal. She's been asked to leave multiple times. Actually, Navarro said slowly, I haven't heard anyone ask her to leave. What I heard were complaints about ticket verification. Sterling's face flushed a mottled red. Well, I'm asking now. She's trespassing. Amina spoke for the first time in several minutes. Officer Navarro, I'd like to clarify something. Her voice was steady, carrying across the gate area. I have not refused to comply with any legitimate security procedures. I have offered my boarding pass, my identification, and my full cooperation. What I haven't done, Amina said evenly, is accept false accusations or submit to discriminatory treatment prohibited under federal law. Sterling laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Federal law. Lady, this is private property. We have the right to refuse service to anyone. Not anyone, Amina replied quietly. Federal contractors have specific obligations regarding discrimination. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. Federal Aviation Regulations, Part 139. The legal terms hung in the air like incantations. Most passengers didn't grasp every statute, but they understood her tone, calm, confident, and surgically precise. Sterling's laugh died. Are you threatening to sue us? I'm stating facts, Amina said simply. Her phone buzzed again, text from the oversight team. Live stream tagged us. For 0.7K viewers. CNN picked it up. Orders, she typed. Stand by. Let it play out. Tessa's live stream had indeed hit 4,700 viewers. Someone had cross-posted it to Instagram. Another had shared it on Facebook. The airline's mentions on X were now over 300 and climbing. Flight 447, final call. Gate closes in 3 minutes. Sterling's jaw set. Officer Navarro, arrest her for trespassing. Navarro stepped back. Sir, I can't arrest someone for standing in an airport terminal with a valid ticket. Then I'll call someone who will, Sterling snapped, yanking out his phone. Amina unlatched her briefcase again. This time, she removed her Federal Aviation Administration tablet. Its official seal impossible to miss. She powered it on, fingers moving quickly across the screen. What's that? Navarro asked. Federal Compliance Monitoring System. Amina replied without looking up. Real-time violation reporting. Ryan finally spoke, voice breaking. Violation reporting for what? Amina met his eyes for the first time since the confrontation began. Discrimination by federal contractors. Title VII violations. Civil Rights Act breaches. Federal Aviation Regulation noncompliance. She began typing, her voice steady as she narrated each entry. October 18, 2024, Portland International Airport, Gate C12. Initial contact, 6:47 p.m. Discriminatory language documented. Physical blocking of access. Hostile work environment created for federal officials conducting oversight. Sterling lunged toward her. "Give me that thing." Navarro stepped in, his voice sharp. "Sir, you need to calm down. Do you know what she's doing?" Sterling barked. "She's filing false reports against the airline." "Not false," Amina said, still typing. "Documented. Recorded. Witnessed by approximately 60 people and 4,700 live stream viewers." "As if on cue," Tessa called out. 4,900 viewers now. This is trending on TikTok. The number kept climbing. 100. 5,400. Social media's algorithms had caught the scent of controversy. Sterling's phone rang. He answered with trembling hands. "Sterling here, what? How many news outlets?" "Christ. No, it's not under control." He hung up, sweat beading across his forehead. "Corporate headquarters wants a full report now." Amina saved her report on the FAA tablet and looked up at the gathered crowd. Passengers, airline staff, airport security, and dozens of phones aimed her way. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying across the gate area, "I want to thank you for witnessing this interaction. Your presence has been invaluable." She rose slowly, collecting her belongings with deliberate precision. "Officer Navarro," Amina said evenly, "am I free to board my flight now?" Navarro looked at Sterling. Sterling glanced at his phone, still buzzing with back-to-back calls from corporate. Clara and Ryan exchanged a glance, panic flickering in their eyes. Final boarding call. Flight 447. The loudspeaker crackled. 2 minutes past official close time. Through the terminal windows, passengers could see the jet bridge beginning to retract. The faint whir of the plane's engines reached the gate. Sterling made his last desperate move. "The flight is closed. Gates shut. You missed it, because of your behavior." Amina smiled again. That same dangerous, quiet smile. "Actually, Mr. Sterling, federal regulations require airlines to accommodate federal officials on official business, even when delays are caused by discriminatory treatment." She reached into her bag and withdrew her Federal Aviation Administration badge. No longer hidden, no longer subtle. The gold eagle caught the terminal lights. "My name is Dr. Amina Qureshi, Director of Compliance Oversight, Federal Aviation Administration. And this flight," she paused, letting the silence stretch, "waits for me." The gate area went still except for the hum of fluorescent lighting, and Tessa's whispered commentary into her phone. "Y'all, I think we just witnessed something historic." On her live stream, the number ticked upward, 6,000 viewers and climbing. 7 seconds of pure silence. Then chaos. Sterling's face drained to paper white. Clara's hands flew to her mouth. Ryan stepped back as if he'd just been shoved. Navarro's posture straightened instinctively, years of ingrained respect for federal authority snapping into place. "Federal Aviation Administration?" Navarro asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Amina held up her credentials, not the small lapel badge from before, but the full leather wallet with the gold eagle, official photograph, and embossed government seal. "Director of Compliance Oversight, Western Region, badge number 4471. The credential case gleamed under the harsh lights. Every passenger within 30 feet leaned forward to see. Phones zoomed in. Tessa's live stream chat exploded. "Oh my God, she's federal. They're done for. This is better than a movie." Sterling fumbled his phone, dialing at lightning speed. "Code red," he hissed into the receiver. "We have a federal official." "Yes, the federal aviation official." "No, I didn't know." He was still talking, but Amina had already said everything she needed to, the statutes, the regulations, the compliance terms. They simply hadn't been listening. Ryan found his voice first, stammering. "Dr. Qureshi, we didn't know. There was no identification shown." "I showed my boarding pass," Amina replied calmly. "I provided my full cooperation." I stated I needed to board this flight, Amina said evenly. What I didn't do was announce my federal position, because this was supposed to be routine travel. She paused, letting the silence sharpen her point. However, when federal contractors engage in discriminatory behavior, specifically Islamophobic profiling, routine travel becomes an official investigation. Amina opened her FAA tablet fully now, no longer concealing the screen. The interface displayed real-time violation tracking, case numbers, statute references, legal code citations stacking like a slot machine hitting jackpot. Title VII discrimination confirmed. 42 U.S.C. Section 1980, 1 violation documented. Federal contractor noncompliance verified. Each entry carried weight, legal weight, financial weight. Navarro leaned closer, his years in law enforcement teaching him to spot the difference between theatrics and the real thing. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't for show. This was the real deal. Ma'am, Navarro said carefully, how can we fix this situation? Before Amina could respond, Sterling's phone erupted again and again and again. The corporate crisis machine had officially switched to red alert. Sterling here, what do you mean CNN is calling? How did they get this story so fast? 6,000 what? Live viewers? Christ almighty. Tessa's live stream had indeed caught CNN's attention. A bored producer scrolling TikTok at 7:15 p.m. on a slow Friday saw airport Islamophobia trending, and within minutes, the story was being packaged for the evening news cycle. But Amina wasn't finished. She scrolled through her phone's recent calls and held it up where everyone could see. The call log read like a DC power directory. Chairman Mercer, 24 missed calls. Senate Commerce Committee, 12 missed calls. Transportation Secretary, 8 missed calls. White House Liaison, 3 missed calls. You see, Amina said, her voice carrying to every corner of the now silent gate area. I wasn't just trying to catch a flight tonight. I was traveling to Washington, D.C. for an emergency Senate Commerce Committee hearing. She paused, letting the moment breathe. A hearing about discrimination in the airline industry. A hearing where I am the lead witness. A hearing where my testimony will determine whether Congress renews the Federal Aviation Contract Program. Sterling froze mid-sentence with his corporate handler. What program? Amina's smile returned, patient, instructive, and terrifying. The program that provides $5.2 billion annually in federal contracts for major airlines, covering routes, security, infrastructure, maintenance. Your airline alone receives approximately $847 million per year from this program. The numbers hit like blows. Sterling actually swayed. But surely, Clara interjected desperately. One incident wouldn't affect an entire program. One incident. Amina swiped to a new screen. This is the incident report database. Let me show you something interesting. Her fingers moved with surgical precision. Data populated the display. Complaints, violations, patterns. Portland International Airport, your airline's hub. Discrimination complaints in the past 18 months, 47. Islamophobic profiling incidents, 32. All documented. All investigated. All pointing to a clear pattern of systemic bias. The crowd leaned in. Travelers who'd started the night just wanting to get home were now witnessing a masterclass in federal authority. Tonight's incident, Amina continued, represents the final data point needed to establish a Title VII pattern and practice violation. Under federal contractor regulations, pattern violations trigger automatic contract review. She let that land before delivering the knockout. Automatic contract review means immediate suspension of federal funding pending investigation. For your airline, that's $2.3 million per day in lost revenue. Sterling's phone had stopped ringing. He stood frozen, calculating. 2.3 million times months of investigation, often lasting 6 to 18 months. A corporate death sentence delivered in calm, measured tones. However, Amina said, and that single word carried more weight than the numbers before it. There are procedures for avoiding contract review. Voluntary compliance programs. Immediate remediation. Good faith efforts to address systemic problems. Hope flickered across Sterling's face. Of course, those procedures require acknowledgement of wrongdoing, complete cooperation with federal oversight, and most importantly, Amina paused. They require the discriminatory behavior to be addressed at the source. Her eyes moved slowly from Ryan to Clara to Sterling. Ryan cracked first. Dr. Qureshi, I apologize. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I jumped to conclusions and… Stop. Amina's voice sliced clean through his babbling. Apologies don't address systemic problems. Systemic problems require systemic solutions. She swiped to a new screen on her FAA tablet, and Sterling's face went pale. Federal Contractor Database, real-time compliance status. Your airline's current rating, Amina said, glancing at her watch, is under review as of 7:23 p.m. tonight. Yellow status. The screen displayed a simple traffic light system. Green, compliant. Yellow, warning. Red, contract termination. It takes exactly 48 hours to move from yellow to red, Amina explained. Unless, of course, immediate remediation measures are implemented. Tessa's live stream had hit 8,200 viewers. Comments blurred past, but 3 words kept repeating. They're so screwed. Sterling's corporate instincts finally kicked in, damage control mode. Dr. Qureshi, what would immediate remediation look like? Amina closed her tablet with a soft click, a sound that somehow managed to be both gentle and ominous. Mr. Sterling, that's an excellent question. But before we discuss remediation, there's something else you should know. Another card. Another reveal. She pulled out her phone, opening her text thread labeled Senate Commerce Committee. Tonight's hearing isn't just about discrimination, she said, holding the phone so Sterling could see. It's about the Federal Aviation Reauthorization Act, the legislation that determines whether the current contractor system continues for the next 5 years. Sterling read the texts over her shoulder. Chairman Mercer, how strong is your discrimination evidence? Amina, strong enough to change the entire industry. Chairman Mercer, good. We need ammunition for the reform provisions. Amina, you'll have it. Real-time documentation. You see, Mr. Sterling, Amina continued, Congress has been debating whether to reform airline regulation. Some members believe the current system is too lenient. They want stricter oversight, higher penalties, mandatory federal monitors at every major airport. She paused, letting the implications build. Others think the current system works fine with minor adjustments. The vote tonight determines which side wins, and my testimony, based on real incidents, real data, real discrimination, will likely be the deciding factor. Sterling understood now. He was staring at a woman who could reshape the entire airline industry with a single congressional testimony. A woman his employees had just subjected to Islamophobic profiling, while it was being live-streamed to thousands of viewers. Now, Amina said, closing her phone, shall we discuss immediate remediation? Or would you prefer I catch the next flight to Washington and deliver my testimony exactly as originally planned? The choice was clear. Comply or face ruin. Sterling looked at Ryan and Clara, the 2 people who had just handed a federal official the ammunition she needed to dismantle their entire operation. What do you need from us? He asked quietly. Amina checked her watch. 7:27 p.m. The Senate hearing had already been delayed until 8:30 p.m. to accommodate her travel. She had time for one more reveal. Before we discuss terms, she said, opening her briefcase one final time, I should mention that this entire interaction has been recorded, not just by social media, but by federal surveillance equipment. She withdrew a device no larger than a smartphone, its casing stamped with official government markings. Federal Aviation Administration, Field Recording Unit. Every word, every gesture, every discriminatory action, she said, has been documented according to federal evidence standards. This recording will be entered into the official case file and presented to Congress as Exhibit A. The final card was played. The hand was over. Ryan, Clara, and Sterling now stood facing a woman who had just demonstrated the difference between power and authority. They had power, the power to deny boarding, to summon security, to make demands. She had authority, the authority to end careers, terminate contracts, and reshape industries. Now, Amina said, her tone returning to its original calm precision, let's discuss how we fix this. All of this. Tessa's live stream ticked past 9,500 viewers. The revolution would be digitized. But Amina wasn't done. She turned and looked directly into Tessa's phone camera. Ladies and gentlemen watching at home, what you've witnessed tonight represents something far larger than one incident. This is about systemic change. Her voice carried the weight of someone who understood power at its deepest level. Every federal contractor, airlines, defense companies, healthcare systems, operates under the same regulations I enforce. Title VII doesn't just apply to airlines. It applies anywhere federal money flows. She gestured toward the crowd of passengers, all recording, all bearing witness. Your documentation tonight, your social media posts, your willingness to stand up and say, "This is wrong," that creates the pressure that forces institutional change. Sterling's phone buzzed again. This time, he looked at the caller ID, and his face went pale. "Board of Directors," he whispered to Clara. Amina noticed. "Mr. Sterling," she said smoothly, "I assume your board is calling about stock price impact. Social media tends to affect markets quickly these days." She was right. Tessa's live stream had been shared across every major platform. Hashtag Airline Islamophobia was trending on X. The airline stock had already dropped 1.2% in after-hours trading, a $47 million market cap loss in under an hour. "Dr. Qureshi," Sterling said, his voice barely steady. "What happens next?" Amina closed her briefcase with deliberate precision. "What happens next, Mr. Sterling, depends entirely on your airline's commitment to change. Real change. Systemic change." She checked her watch one final time. "I have a Senate hearing in 53 minutes, a hearing where I'll testify about exactly this type of Islamophobic discrimination. The question is, will tonight's incident be cited as evidence of an industry that refuses to change, or as an example of an airline that chose to lead by implementing immediate reforms?" The choice crystallized in the air between them. Ryan, Clara, and Sterling stood looking at a woman who had just demonstrated the difference between power and authority. They had power, the power to deny boarding, to call security, to make demands. She had authority, the authority to end careers, terminate contracts, and reshape industries. Officer Navarro stepped forward. "Dr. Qureshi, is there anything else you need from airport security?" "Actually, yes," Amina replied. "I'd like this incident documented in your official report. Federal regulations require law enforcement cooperation in discrimination investigations." Navarro nodded, already pulling out his incident report tablet. "Absolutely, ma'am." The bureaucratic machinery began shifting into motion. Official reports, federal investigations, congressional testimony, national media coverage. All because 3 airline employees had looked at a Muslim woman in a professional suit and decided she didn't belong in first class. "Now," Amina said, her voice returning to its original calm tone, "let's discuss how we fix this. All of this." Tessa's live stream ticked up to 9,847 viewers. The revolution was being digitized in real time. Sterling's phone suddenly erupted with an incoming video call. The caller ID read, "Patricia Hayes, CEO's office." His hands trembled as he accepted. Patricia Hayes appeared on the screen. Sharp suit, sharper expression, and the barely contained fury of someone watching her company's reputation implode in real time. "Sterling, what the hell is happening at Gate C12? Her voice cut through the speakerphone loud enough for everyone in the gate area to hear. "Ma'am, we have a situation with—" "I know what we have," Hayes interrupted coldly. "I have the CNN news desk calling my personal line. I have our stock down 2.1% in after-hours trading. I have a goddamn viral video with over 10,000 viewers watching our employee's profile and harass a federal official for wearing a hijab." Tessa mouthed 10,300 to her phone camera. Hayes continued, "But most importantly, Robert, I have our general counsel telling me we're about to lose our federal aviation contracts. Contracts worth $847 million annually. So I'll ask again, what the hell is happening?" Amina stepped into the phone's camera view. "Ms. Hayes, I'm Dr. Amina Qureshi, Federal Aviation Administration. Perhaps I can clarify the situation." Hayes's expression shifted from anger to something closer to fear. "Dr. Qureshi, we've heard your name in industry meetings." "I'm sure you have," Amina replied evenly. "Ms. Hayes, Your employees have created a situation that requires immediate corporate response. We have documented Title VII violations, federal contractor noncompliance, and a pattern of Islamophobic profiling at this location. Behind Hayes, Amina could see other executives gathering in the CEO's office. Crisis mode in full swing, emergency calls being placed, damage control teams assembling. What are your requirements for resolution? Hayes asked, cutting straight to business. Amina had been waiting for this question. Federal contractor obligations are non-negotiable. Title VII compliance. Civil Rights Act adherence. Immediate remediation of discriminatory practices. She paused, letting the legal weight of her words settle. Specifically, immediate suspension of employees involved. Mandatory company-wide anti-bias training within 30 days. Third-party monitoring of customer interactions for 6 months. Financial settlement to address damages. Sterling's face went ashen. Suspension? Ma'am, we can provide additional training. Mr. Sterling, Amina cut in sharply. You called for my arrest for trespassing in an airport terminal while I held a valid first-class ticket. Those actions demonstrate judgment incompatible with customer service responsibilities. Hayes's voice came through the speaker. What level of financial settlement are we discussing? Federal discrimination settlements typically range from $50,000 to $200,000, depending on severity and publicity, Amina replied. Given the viral nature of this incident and the documented pattern of behavior at this location, I would estimate the higher end of that range. The math was brutal. $200,000 in settlement, millions in lost revenue during investigation, stock price impact, legal fees, training costs. All because Ryan and Clara decided a Muslim woman in a professional suit didn't belong in first class. Dr. Qureshi, Hayes said carefully, what happens if we implement your requirements immediately? Voluntary compliance demonstrates good faith, Amina replied. It shows federal regulators that your company takes discrimination seriously. It provides a framework for avoiding contract review. She opened her tablet again, showing the federal contractor status screen still glowing yellow. However, she added, implementation must be genuine, not performative, not temporary. Systemic change requires systemic commitment. A new voice joined Hayes's video call, a man in an expensive suit, with general counsel visible on his nameplate. Dr. Qureshi, this is James Morrison, our chief legal officer. Can you clarify the timeline for these requirements? Morrison was trying to buy time. Delay, negotiate, minimize, the standard corporate playbook. Amina had seen it 1,000 times. Mr. Morrison, Amina said evenly, federal contractor obligations don't operate on corporate timelines. They operate on compliance timelines. Immediate means immediate. She glanced at her watch. 7:41 p.m. I have a Senate hearing in 49 minutes. That hearing will include my testimony about tonight's events. The question is whether I testify about an airline that chose compliance or one that chose resistance. Morrison leaned forward on the video call. What specific actions constitute immediate compliance? Amina had prepared for this moment her entire career, the intersection of law, power, and justice. Employee suspensions, effective immediately. Public apology from the CEO acknowledging Islamophobic treatment. Commitment to third-party monitoring, signed tonight. Settlement agreement executed within 72 hours. These weren't just legal requirements. They were corporate humiliations, public admissions of guilt that would follow the airline forever. Off camera, Hayes conferred with her team in hushed voices. Rapid calculations. Risk assessments. Damage projections. Sterling made one last desperate attempt. Dr. Qureshi, surely employee suspensions are extreme for what was essentially a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Amina's voice carried ice. Mr. Sterling, your employee told me this section was for legitimate passengers. He suggested I try a budget airline because it was more in my price range. He called me sweetheart and shoved me with his clipboard. She gestured to Tessa's still recording phone. Over 10,000 people watched your staff profile and harass a federal official for wearing a hijab. There's no misunderstanding here. There's only accountability. Hayes reappeared on camera. Dr. Qureshi, we accept your compliance requirements. Full implementation begins tonight. Morrison pulled out a legal pad, taking notes. Employee suspensions effective immediately. CEO public apology within 24 hours. Third-party monitoring agreement signed tonight. Settlement negotiations begin tomorrow. Excellent, Amina replied. Mr. Morrison, I'll need those commitments in writing, emailed to my federal address within 1 hour. She slid a business card into frame, Federal Aviation Administration letterhead, gold eagle seal. Failure to meet any timeline results in automatic contract review initiation. Contract review means suspension of federal funding pending investigation. For your airline, that represents $2.3 million in daily revenue loss. The nuclear option. The corporate death sentence. Hayes nodded grimly. Understood, Dr. Qureshi. Is there anything else required for compliance? Amina looked at Ryan, Clara, and Sterling, 3 people whose Islamophobic actions had just cost their company millions and forced industry-wide changes. Actually, yes. Implementation must include executive accountability. Leadership that allows discriminatory cultures bears responsibility for discriminatory actions. Hayes understood instantly. Mr. Sterling will be reassigned pending internal review. We'll conduct a full investigation of gate operations at this location. Sterling's career was over. 20 years with the company, destroyed by 40 minutes of Islamophobic profiling. Finally, Amina said, your airline will participate in federal best practices development. The policies we create together will become the industry standard for all federal contractors. It was the ultimate victory, not just ending discrimination at one airline, but setting new standards for the entire industry. Hayes nodded. We'll cooperate fully with federal best practices development. Amina closed her FAA tablet with quiet satisfaction. Excellent, Mr. Morrison. I expect your compliance documentation within 1 hour. Failure to meet that deadline initiates immediate contract review. She gathered her belongings, checked her watch one last time, 7:48 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced to the crowd, this concludes tonight's business. I have a Senate hearing to attend. As she walked toward the jet bridge, Tessa called out, Dr. Qureshi, any final words for the viewers? Amina paused, looked directly into the phone camera. Change happens when consequences become real. Tonight, the consequences became very real. The live stream count ticked to 11,200 viewers. Justice served digitally. 3 weeks later, the email arrived at 6 a.m. sharp in Amina's federal inbox. Subject line, Compliance Implementation, Final Report. She opened it over her morning coffee, scanning the corporate transformation that had begun with 40 minutes of discrimination at Gate C12. Immediate actions completed. Ryan Keller, terminated immediately, banned from airline industry employment. Clara Voss, suspended without pay for 90 days, mandatory anti-bias training required for reinstatement. Robert Sterling, demoted to a non-customer-facing role, salary reduced by 40%. Gate C12, complete staff restructuring with diversity-focused hiring. The airline had moved fast, faster than Amina had expected. CEO Patricia Hayes' public apology had aired on every major network, paired with full-page ads in USA Today, The Washington Post, and The Wall Street Journal. The message was clear. We failed. We're changing. This will never happen again. But words were cheap. Amina kept reading for the systemic changes. Company-wide reforms implemented. Dignity protocol, zero-tolerance discrimination policy with immediate termination consequences. Real-time bias reporting app. Passengers can instantly report discriminatory treatment. AI-powered interaction monitoring. All customer service conversations recorded and analyzed for bias patterns. Quarterly sensitivity audits. External consultants evaluate staff behavior and company culture. Executive compensation restructure. 20% of leadership bonuses now tied to diversity and inclusion metrics. The technological solutions impressed her most. The airline had invested $2.3 million in monitoring systems, exactly what they would have lost in a single day of federal contract suspension. Financial accountability settlement to Dr. Qureshi, $175,000. $175,000 donation to the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, Legal Defense Fund. Diversity and Anti-Bias Training Investment, $1.8 million company-wide. Third-party monitoring costs, $500,000 annually for 3 years. Public relations rehabilitation, $3.2 million in advertising and community outreach. Total cost of 40 minutes of Islamophobic profiling, $7.60 million and counting. Amina's phone buzzed with a text from Tessa, the teenager whose live stream had started it all. Dr. Qureshi, my video hit 2.8 million views. I'm getting college scholarship offers for digital activism. Thank you for showing me what real power looks like. The ripple effects kept expanding. Industry-wide transformation. The Qureshi Protocols, named after Amina's Senate testimony, became federal law. Every airline receiving federal contracts now operated under enhanced discrimination reporting requirements, mandatory anti-bias training every 6 months, federal monitor presence at major hub airports, pattern discrimination penalties, 3 verified incidents equals automatic contract review, passenger bill of rights with explicit anti-discrimination provisions, technological innovation. The monitoring systems developed for this airline became the industry standard. Real-time discrimination detection using voice analysis and behavioral pattern recognition. Instant escalation protocols to federal compliance officers. Other industries took notice. Hotels, restaurants, and retail chains began implementing similar safeguards. Cultural impact. Harvard Business School added the case to its curriculum. The Gate C-12 incident. The lesson plan emphasized 3 key principles. Documentation defeats discrimination. Federal leverage creates lasting change. Individual courage can transform entire industries. Personal transformation. Officer Navarro, the airport security officer who showed professional restraint, received a commendation and promotion. His body camera footage became law enforcement training material nationwide. The elderly woman who had spoken up for Amina started a nonprofit, Bystander Intervention for Social Justice, teaching people how to safely support victims of discrimination. Even some airline employees changed. Clara Voss, after completing her suspension and bias training, became an internal advocate for inclusive customer service practices. Legislative victory. Dr. Amina Qureshi's Senate testimony provided the evidence needed for amendments to the Federal Aviation Reauthorization Act. New laws requiring annual discrimination audits for all transportation companies, whistleblower protections for employees reporting bias, consumer transparency, and public reporting of discrimination complaint statistics. The vote passed 67 to 33. Bipartisan support for accountability. Ongoing monitoring. 3 weeks later, Gate C-12 operated under constant federal observation. Every customer interaction was recorded, analyzed, and reported. Discrimination complaints at Portland International Airport had dropped to 0. Not because prejudice vanished overnight, but because consequences became certain and severe. The ripple effect. Amina's federal database tracked similar incidents nationwide. The pattern held, document discrimination, apply federal leverage, create systemic change. Airlines weren't the only ones feeling pressure. Defense contractors, healthcare systems, construction firms, anyone receiving federal funds, now understood that discrimination carried corporate-scale consequences. Final accountability. The airline stock price recovered within 2 weeks. Investors rewarded a company that addressed problems decisively rather than defensively. Employee satisfaction surveys improved. Staff felt proud to work for a business that chose accountability over denial. Customer confidence rose. People wanted to support companies that took discrimination seriously. Personal reflection. Amina filed her final report on the incident, noting a crucial truth. The power had always been there, federal law, corporate accountability, legal consequences, all existing, all available. What had been missing was the will to use it. 40 minutes of public Islamophobic profiling provided that will. The transformation was systemic, durable, real. 6 months later, Dr. Amina Qureshi stood at the same gate, C-12, Portland International Airport. Same first-class boarding line, same 6:47 p.m. Friday departure. But everything else had changed. The gate agent, a young Latina woman named Sophia, greeted passengers with genuine warmth. Behind her, a discreet monitor displayed the airline's new diversity metrics in real time. 0 discrimination incidents this quarter. 98% customer satisfaction. "Good evening, Dr. Qureshi," Sophia said, recognizing her from the mandatory training modules every employee now completed. "Welcome aboard. Your seat is ready whenever you are. No questions about ticket authenticity. No suspicious glances. No coded language. Just professional service, the way it should have been 6 months earlier." Amina noticed the small signals of big change. The dignity protocol poster on the wall, the bias reporting QR code at every gate, the diverse faces across roles, managers, pilots, customer service, not just back of house, but everywhere. These weren't token gestures. They were operational shifts. Settling into seat 1A, she reflected on the arc from humiliation to transformation. 40 minutes of discrimination had produced federal legislation reshaping every transportation company in America. Industry-wide monitoring protecting millions of passengers. Cultural changes extending into hotels, restaurants, retail, and an expanded sense of individual power for victims of discrimination. But the most important change was harder to quantify. People now understood that consequences are real. Executives' new discrimination carries enterprise-level costs. Employees' new training wasn't performative sensitivity theater. It was career survival. Customers knew they could document, report, and demand accountability. The balance had shifted. Amina's phone buzzed with a message from Tessa, now a freshman at Howard University, majoring in digital activism. "Dr. Qureshi, I just taught a workshop on documentation as resistance. 20 students learned how to safely record discrimination incidents. The ripples keep spreading." Another message followed, this one from Officer Navarro. "Ma'am, thought you'd want to know. Our new bystander intervention training prevented 3 discrimination incidents this month. People are speaking up now. Thank you for showing us what courage looks like." The legacy kept growing. These weren't isolated moments anymore. They were part of a living network of individual transformations that fueled systemic change. Real stories of people finding their voices, demanding dignity, and creating accountability. Muslim stories, stories that had always existed but were finally being heard, documented, and acted upon. Life stories showing how one person's courage could reshape entire industries. As the plane taxied toward takeoff, Amina opened her laptop to review the federal discrimination database. The numbers told the story. Airline discrimination complaints down 73% nationally. Federal contractor violations down 68% across all industries. Successful discrimination prosecutions up 156%. Corporate diversity investments up 234%. Data-driven transformation. Measurable progress. Sustainable change. The plane lifted off, carrying Amina toward another Senate hearing. Another opportunity to strengthen civil rights protections, another chance to make sure what happened at Gate C-12 never happened again. But she knew the real work happened on the ground, in airports, offices, restaurants, hotels, everywhere people interacted with power structures that had historically protected discrimination. The real work was done by ordinary people who chose to document, speak up, and demand better. Your voice matters. Your witness matters. Your courage matters. Have you experienced discrimination? Share your story. Document everything. Report it. Don't let it vanish into silence. Follow Muslim Voices Unheard for more accounts of resilience, resistance, and transformation. Turn on notifications, because every story shared is a step toward justice. Share this with someone who needs to see their own power. Tag us in your stories of standing up to injustice. We amplify voices. We create change. We build the world we want to live in. One story at a time. One witness at a time. One victory at a time. This is how change happens. This is how it starts with you.